Hello everybody, welcome to the United Front. This is your match reaction for Manchester United against Fiorentina. 1-1, 5-4 on penalties. Obviously it went to penalties because of there was a cup to be played. So obviously there had to be winners. Also we'll be talking about HOJLUND leaving. Obviously didn't even play a minute against Fiorentina. Could that mean he's leaving Manchester United? Obviously we'll talk about BALEBA, who we're linked with. Didn't start. So what does that mean? Does that mean it gives us a chance? Does that mean BALEBA wants the United move? And also Sesko's quotes on joining Manchester United. So obviously where to start with, obviously United. Look, it was a I wouldn't say boring. It was more of a 50-50 game. Obviously they are back. It was great to see. Obviously, just looking at the stats right now, 14 shots, 5 on target. It just shows how great De Gea was. Obviously, there's still him being able to struggle playing from the back. But still, De Gea, obviously, look, if you ask me for my man of the match, it'd be De Gea. But if I had to pick it from United, I'd either pick Mount or Dorgu. But no, I just think, look, the team Amrin put out, it kind of really, surprised me. Or you could just say, why would he play that same team? Now, I thought to myself, okay, you know what, maybe he's trying to, see Cunha and Mount and Bromo as a front three. And then I thought to myself, you know what, I don't mind, him using that team for 60 or 65 minutes because, that could be the team against Arsenal. But he kept them on for 70 minutes, and I'm thinking to myself, leave what you're trying to do in terms of doing an experiment. But he didn't even play a single striker. We didn't even have, a number 9 in presence. It was almost like we were playing with 3 10s and no one was the threat. No one was terrorizing the defenders. We didn't have a striker that could do those things. So, look, it's not even that. Not only didn't he play Rasmus, he didn't even play Cheeto. Now, if he had played Cheeto, that probably means that Rasmus was going. But then, some people were saying, oh, he might go. But some people were saying, you know what, he didn't even play Cheeto, so maybe he's trying to test out. But I didn't really understand this because I even said in my match preview, we should approach this game like it's a community shield. Like you got like something to it's like obviously community shields like obviously pre-season, but another pre-season game, but it's just a domestic trophy on the line. We should approach that way, and Amri should have went with his strongest team, well-balanced team. But he didn't even play a single number 9, which was obviously surprising. So, obviously I'll talk about HOJLUND later on. But, to be honest, look, it was kind of boring in a way that, you didn't even get to see a striker, an actual number 9 that can actually do the, push the defense deep, terrorizing the defenders, running in behind, and all those types of things that a striker can do to the defenders. But we played with 3 10s, and obviously we couldn't get a result. Obviously, look, result doesn't matter. It's all about match sharpness and fitness, but winning also means that, gaining momentum. Now, obviously, we're recorded right now. Arsenal had already won against Athletic Club, 3-0, I believe. So, look, obviously, people can say Arsenal already, despite, losing twice. But, sometimes pre-season, you could be good and have a shit start. Whereas you can have a bad pre-season and start good. It can go either way. But, look, judging off the game, look, 3 draws, 2 wins, we should have comfortably won that game. It's just that the way Amrin went with this team, look, obviously I was frustrated despite being pre-season, but you'd want to start with a striker, and I've said this before. You know, treat it as more of a charity shield or whatever, and you know, pick your actual lineup that you could against Arsenal. And look, I saw that Arsenal team against Athletic Club, and they probably, this was the team they put out. That's probably the team they might go against us. You know, obviously left back might be controversial. Some Arsenal fans would go in Miles Lewis-Skelly. Maybe some Arsenal fans would try to fit Marino in it. Maybe not put Martinelli, but you know, they did put a strong team, and obviously, you know, it wasn't. We didn't as well. You know, we basically put Cunha and Mboma as 10s and Mount up front. You know, and we didn't have a proper number 9 to, you know, feed the service or whatever. It's almost like we'll play with a false 9, which is obviously irritating and boring. But you know, apart from that, you know, if I could give ratings, I feel like Bayern. Then obviously when it came to the penalties, which I called out, I knew the last player was gonna miss. You know, but apart from that, I feel like, you know, he did have one save where he was 1-on-1, despite being offside. Mount, I feel like, had a great game. Not even on the ball, I feel like off the ball. I mean that's what Amran likes about him, and that's what I rate about Mount. Is his work ethic, you know, his work rate, running, you know, it's just absolutely amazing. And look, I've said this before. Mount, when he's fit, it's the same with Luke Shaw. When they're fit, you get a great player in them. The problem with Mount is he's just injured, yeah, and that's what he needs to work on. And Bomo, you know, it was nice to see him at Old Trafford with Cunha. But look, this game would have gone differently if we went with a striker, you know. So, you know, but apart from that, Casemiro played decent. Bruno Fernandes, you know, obviously, look, I've always said Bruno shouldn't play there, but I felt like he had an okay game. Obviously, trying Lombo FC. Ahmad, I felt like that was probably one of his poorest games during this pre-season. So, you know, hopefully that changes. Yoro played well. Heaven slightly looked, obviously a lot of pressure was coming down from his side. Who else came on the bench? That's about it. You know, I mean, if you can look, you know, he didn't play HOJLUND, he didn't play Chido. Leon didn't get a start minutes. Toby Collier did, and so. Look, it was weird, obviously, him not playing Rasmus, but I know people might say, well, that means Rasmus is out of the door. But then again, he didn't play Chido, so it is kind of weird. Look, if he played Chido and still didn't bring on Rasmus, that means he's going. But he didn't play with a number 9, so, you know. But obviously, what else was exciting? I mean, Sesko coming on. We're going to talk about what he said about United as well. You know, look, obviously he is expected to play against Arsenal. I don't expect him to start. Look, I'd probably be surprised, despite, you know, obviously, you know, he's gonna have a we're obviously basically a week away from obviously playing against Arsenal. So probably might have 2 training sessions. Obviously training. Obviously, for those that saying that did he have preseason? Yes, he has. He has preseason. With Leipzig, so that's not a worry. It's just about him, you know, where he integrates into this team. So, you know, but apart from that, I mean, look, obviously it's pre-season, but you'd obviously want to win, and seeing what Arsenal did to Athletic Club with their strong side, who knows? I mean, is this where we should be worried? I mean. Look, I mean, I said this, you know, play your strongest team, and then obviously till the 65th minute, and then obviously bring on the kids as well. But Amra didn't do that, so, you know, but hopefully he doesn't go with the same approach, because if he does do that against Arsenal, I don't see us winning. I really don't see us winning, because how can you go and not play with a number 9, an absolute you know, how can you not play with a number 9? You know, obviously Amrin doesn't play that way, you know, false 9. But if he does go that approach, then he's already lost. And, you know, this kind of, if he does that, it gives you glimpses of Ten Hag when he used to, in the third season of the earliest, you know, people were saying he was doing that just to get the sack, you know, get the money, you know, by putting up stupid players on and, you know, our position. So, you know, people might say, you know what, Amrin might do the same thing. Look, I want Amrin to stay. I want him to do well. But if he picks the wrong team, if he, you know, approaches a different way to Arsenal, then you're giving yourself a reason to get sacked. So, all I want is that I don't want Amrin to play this this team that he played against Fiorentina, against Arsenal. Because if he does that, then you might as well say we lost, because you're not winning with that team. And the approach that he's going with by playing 3-10s. Look, obviously I know people are gonna say, oh, but Sesko's gonna come off the bench, you know, but that'll be too late anyway. You know, Rasmus starts, you know. You never know, he might play well in that game, because don't forget as well, which I'm gonna talk about later, he should start, and then obviously 60th minute or maybe earlier than that, Sesko comes on, you know. So I think this is the approach that he should go for. But apart from that, I mean, I'm worried, but I'm not worried. Are we ready for Arsenal? Because, look, they played their strongest team, and, you know, obviously, Gyökeres obviously scored his first goal. Congrats on that. And he looks off the start as well, you know. So, I mean, that's the question. So yeah, that was the match reaction, and some news. So yeah, obviously we start with HOJLUND. So, I mean, I forgot to mention this in my previous video, but I'll say it now. Obviously, there's this news about, you know, Amram not playing him, not even a single minute, and people thinking, you know what, he could leave. And apparently United are open to, you know, loaning or, you know, permanently transfer for Rasmus. And I'm thinking to myself, if they do this, look, I will say it, but, you know, sometimes fans want things to happen and it doesn't go their way. But if they do loan him, it's going to be a waste of time, because you're going to loan him and, you know, you're going to have a striker less. You know, you're going to have no one to back up for Sesko. And even if you do sell HOJLUND, which apparently people are saying that they're using HOJLUND's funds, if he does get sold, to get BALEBA, you know, they do need another striker. So if you're going to sell Rasmus, you need another striker. It's that simple. We need 2 strikers. We got Sesko, and if Rasmus goes, we need another one. And knowing us, we're not going to prioritize on another striker. So why should we, you know, sell Rasmus? Now, I wanted to say this. I don't know what you guys feel. It might be completely different, but this is my view on this, my theory. When Rasmus came in his first season, he was 20 years old, had a decent season, 16 goals. He was technically he was the only striker of the club. Now people might say, well, Martial was there, but technically Martial was, you know, injury prone, everyone knows, and obviously unreliable. So Rasmus was playing most of the games anyway, and had a decent season. You know, despite, even if he had a bad game, he wasn't he was still gonna play. Going on to the second season, we signed Xerxes. Now everyone thought Xerxes was gonna be our another striker, number 9, but then obviously in an interview where he said, I'm a 9.5, which obviously led to controversy into asking what is he, and obviously the second of 10 are Amrin coming in. Amrin decided to use Xerxes as a number 10. So that meant HOJLUND was the only recognised striker for Amrin, and obviously had a poor season. Going into the new season, we've got Sesko. Now, knowing Rasmus, obviously Rasmus doesn't know this, and Rasmus did say he wants to stay. He doesn't mind any competition. This is good for him. Because in those first 2 seasons, he didn't have competition. So even if he had a poor game, there was no competition for him to, get subbed off. Unless, you decided to bring on Chido or something, But in those first 2 seasons, he didn't have competition. Now, obviously, Sesko coming in. Obviously, Sesko being one of the best young talents in Europe. Obviously, he has that pressure to compete with that. Obviously, Sesko is expected to be our number one. But if Rasmus Rasmus said himself, he doesn't mind the competition. Knowing Sesko, if he's that great and how great he is that he says, and why Manchester United bought him, Rasmus needs to be better. And some players need other players to make them better, because Rasmus is going to be a number 2 now. He's not going to be starting for Manchester United as regularly as he was before. But if Sesko has a bad game and HOJLUND plays well, because you can use that as motivation to, what, I might be second, but what, I'm going to use that motivation to play well and make sure Amrin picks me ahead of Sesko. Because look, obviously Sesko's going to have pressure on him, but as people are saying he's better than HOJLUND or whatever, if he plays bad and HOJLUND plays good, that gives him another chance for him to start for United. So, because obviously, why? He's got competition. Previously, he never had competition, so even if he had a bad game, he was still going to play anyway. But if Rasmus has a bad game, he knows that he's not going to play in a few games. Whereas if Sesko has a bad game and HOJLUND decides to step up, it gives him a chance into the starting lineup. So if you look at it, it might make HOJLUND a better player, because obviously he's got competition, and obviously as Sesko being one of the best young talents in world football, that competition is obviously tough, but it can be good for HOJLUND. So, I don't... And look, if we sell Rasmus, then who's going to replace Sesko? Because if he has an injury, you can't rely on Xerxes because he's not a number 9. He's going to play as a 10. You can't rely on Chido because he's young. Who can you rely on? HOJLUND, if we don't sell him. And you do need that squad depth. And if we do sell him, United need to bring another striker. You can't go into the season and not have a backup. I know people are going to say, oh, but Xerxes, but you guys need to realize Xerxes is going to play in the 10. Yes, of course, there's a lot of players that are preoccupied in that position, but knowing Xerxes, I feel like he fits more of a 10 as a number 9 anyway. So I feel like selling Rasmus will be a mistake anyway, because you need that backup. And look, why can't we have Sesko and Rasmus as being our two number 9s? Imagine, look, Sesko gets 20 goals, Rasmus gets 13 or 10, and some assists. It could be, look, 30 goals contributions. Who knows? You guys want 2 strikers who are hungry and want to get goals and compete with each other. But the thing is, Rasmus didn't have competition in the first 2 seasons. That's why whenever he's played poorly, normally when you play bad, you always stay on the bench. And that motivates you into thinking, what, I played so badly, I need to start working hard or whatever. Not saying Rasmus doesn't, but sometimes being on the bench and looking on the pitch, visualizing it, it's a good thing, because, look, Rasmus also, he's overplayed as well. Obviously being our only striker, and obviously that comes with, playing bad as well, performances, inconsistent. So I think him having Sesko to deal with and obviously competing with him is going to be tough. But obviously it's good, because if he wants to make a name for himself, if he wants to be the number 1 at Manchester United, it's better to do it by being the backup. And if Sesko plays badly, you step up and obviously show Amrin why you should be number 1. That's what you want from Manchester United. You don't want, oh, he's so great, and when I come off the bench, I'll play well. No, you want 2 strikers that are selfish and greedy. They want to play week in, week out. you know. But look, my theory is completely different to how you guys would think. So that's my theory. But look, if we sell Højlund, not only will it be a mistake, but you're gonna need a new striker, you know. And look, do we have the funds for that? Because apparently we're gonna use those funds, and if we sell Garnacho, we're gonna use those funds to sell, to buy BALEBA. So I think selling him will be a mistake. But you know, as obviously we've seen it with obviously against Fiorentina and him not playing a single minute, he might leave. Look, obviously we have a week left. We'll see how that goes. But again, if he's still at the club before the Arsenal game, he has to start. Otherwise, if he's still here and Amarin goes with that shit team that look, on paper it looks great. Mount and Burmo and Cunha, it looks great on paper, but it's not balanced and it's shit on the pitch. You know, it's not looking good on the pitch. So, you know, hopefully he plays with Rasmus, and obviously 60th minute Sesko makes his cameo debut, and then obviously we'll see on how we play against Arsenal. But I think selling will be a mistake. So yeah, let's talk about BALEBA. So obviously he didn't play. He wasn't even in the match day squad against who Brighton were playing anyway. But who were they playing? Yeah, they were playing Wolfsburg and they won 2-1, and he wasn't included in the Brighton squad. Now, does this show that he wants to move? You know, is that showing that, you know what, Brighton are interested in securing a fee for BALEBA, because obviously not him starting, not even him being in a match day. No, obviously, you know, you could say another a point for Rasmus as well. You know, if he wasn't in the match day squad, that means he was going to be leaving. But this shows also BALEBA could obviously force himself a move to Old Trafford. But look, to get BALEBA, we need to get rid of Garnacho, Anthony, Sancho, and that's going to be hard. You know, we thought bringing incomers was going to be harder. The outgoings is more tougher as well. So that's where the tough part is. But look, I mean, do you see Brighton lowering their fee? I don't really see it, unless obviously, look, I don't see, you know, Brighton being a club that's desperate to sell BALEBA, because look, they want to keep him for another season at least. But United approached them, BALEBA's interested, so obviously that's why Brighton are interested in selling him. But obviously with that fee that they put out, it's obviously going to be tough. Not impossible, but it could be at one stage unrealistic for us to get him because of the fee and how tough it could get. And obviously we can't get him if we don't make some outgoing signings already. So, you know, but look, could that be a hint for him to come to Old Trafford? Look, who knows? But, you know, it's not going to be easy because, you know, for BALEBA, you know, obviously it's going to be a record transfer fee, but also it's going to be tough for us to make it, because look, we might not get him for the Arsenal game. Look, without a shadow of a doubt, we're not going to sign him. Here we go and all that, and he's going to play for Arsenal, play against Arsenal. No, we probably might get him at deadline day. You know, so, you know, but that's on BALEBA and obviously Sesko. So I want to read some quotes of what Sesko said, and this is what he said. The history of Manchester United is obviously very special, but what really excites me is the future. When we discussed the project, it was clear that everything is in place for this team to continue to grow and compete for the biggest trophies again soon. From the moment that I arrived, I could feel the positive energy and family environment that the club has created. It is clearly the perfect place to reach my maximum level and fulfill all my ambitions. I cannot wait to start learning from Ruben and connecting with my teammates to achieve the success that we all know we are capable of together. So, obviously very positive, as you know. And yeah, really excited. Look, obviously, look, it's amazing to have Sesko. Obviously, plus to that, it would be amazing to have someone like HOJLUND, because look, I'm not gonna say HOJLUND was one of those strikers where, he was one of the best young strikers at the time. No, I'm not gonna say that. But at the time, he was potential to be one of the best strikers in the world. Young strikers in the world. Obviously, when he made his move to Old Trafford, it was obviously slow. Obviously, decent first season, poor in the second. But like I said with HOJLUND, he needs someone to motivate him and become a better player. Because look, Sesko, as we all know, is, obviously this is what he said, obviously over the past 2 seasons, he scored the most goals of any player under 23 in Europe's top 5 leagues. 21 goals and 6 assists for RB Leipzig during the last campaign. Obviously, capped 41 times for Slovenia and scored 16 goals. So that's really good. But this is not the type of striker and quality that HOJLUND should compete with himself. Because look, I'm gonna repeat myself again. He doesn't mind the competition, but if he wants to play great, you need to come up and compete with someone like Sesko. And look, as we're seeing from obviously how he's capable and how he is as one of the best strikers, young strikers in the world, HOJLUND needs that, to compete, and it's good to compete. Like, obviously, look, if he was competing with, Ronaldo, obviously Ronaldo would start anyway, but, working hard and trying to force the manager to start you is great if it was against Ronaldo. It's the same with Sesko as well. You wanna compete for that first spot. You want to compete to be in the starting lineup. So that's what you want. And look, this is why we signed Sesko, because of his talent, his hunger and his goals and his threat in terms of terrorizing defenders. That's what you want, and that's what HOJLUND is has to compete with if he stays. And if he does well, it'll be great, because you never know. You might see, if he does stay, you might see a different Rasmus, So obviously, look, and obviously, Wilcox obviously said Benjamin possesses a rare combination of pace and ability to physically dominate defenders, making him one of the most exceptional young talents in world football. So this just shows why United bought him, and this is what HOJLUND has to compete with. And if HOJLUND does well, it's great. Not only is it great for United, but it's also great for HOJLUND, because why not have one but 2 strikers that are capable of terrorizing, scoring goals against defenders and teams? That's what you want. At one point HOJLUND was that, at Atalanta, or potentially becoming that player. But we don't know you don't know what the situation is. Look, he might leave. I still think is a mistake, because I think having HOJLUND and Sesko as 2 of your young strikers, and everyone knows what potentially HOJLUND can become, is really good. Look, HOJLUND on his day can be really great. I know there's gonna be haters saying, "Oh, but he's still sharing whatever." Yeah, but that's just you feeding negativity, because you don't understand what it's like to be a 20-year-old striker playing for one of the biggest clubs in the world, and you're relied upon. And don't forget as well, not only has HOJLUND been our only striker for the past 2 seasons, he's actually, maintained to keep fitness in those 2 seasons. I think probably after he, in his first season, he got injured when he went on that run of scoring. Obviously, when he came back, he scored again. Now, obviously, competing with Sesko is a great thing, because you can use that. Tell Amrin, I'm still that guy. And, Amrin will have to decide who he has to pick from Sesko and HOJLUND. So, look, it'll be great to keep, obviously, both. Because when you look at it, you got 2 young talents in... Look, I'm going to say talent with HOJLUND. I don't give a shit what anyone says, because I still think there's a player in him. And like I said before, maybe HOJLUND needs someone to motivate himself into becoming the player that he needs to become. Like I said, was the only striker, had no competition. Now he has competition, and he doesn't mind it. Hopefully we'll get to see a better version of HOJLUND, And not only goals from Sesko, but obviously goals from HOJLUND. So, but we need to see obviously in the coming days, and obviously before we face Arsenal. So, but apart from that, is there any news? No, that's about it. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. Obviously really excited. Could potentially do the watch along against Liverpool and Palace. If not, obviously my first official watch along will be against Arsenal, which I'm really excited about. Really excited for the new season. Obviously new players like Sesko, obviously seeing and how he fares out. Obviously new players we could come in like Donnarumma or BALEBA, whoever else comes on that shortlist. But apart from that, yeah, just really excited. So thank you guys for watching. See you in the next one.